Hi, everybody. Good morning to you from Germany. My name is Mike from Settling Ojirasaft, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, something which we usually don't talk about so often, the silent distance. Why many of us living abroad go for years without returning home. And as always, I have with me my co host in the studio, Mike, who's joining us from Nigeria. So, Mike, you want to say hello? And the network is having some issues, and he's out of the studio. Anyways, what we've been asking ourselves is why is it that many of us living abroad, it takes a long time for us to go back home. There are several reasons to this, and we will, in this conversation, talk about some of the key points. And I personally will be giving my perspective as someone who has been living abroad for over 11 years now. Why, what has been the case for me, but also what I think in general is the case for most people living abroad. In my case, for the first time, I went home after 7 years. The first time I went home when I came in 2014 was in 2021. And it was a really strange feeling to go back home after 7 years. But I'll tell you more about that in the story as we dive in. So I hope you will stick around till the end. Mike, if you're back, over to you so we can dive in.
Yeah, good morning, Mike, and very good morning to you all, our viewers in all the different platforms. It's a very another very interesting topic here today, and I can't wait to for us to get started in earnest. Because I was wondering, I think it's been about 15 years or even more since I last saw you, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's almost same with most of you who travel out of the shores of the African of Africa to Europe and other parts of America and all that. So we're just wondering why is it that you scarcely travel home? I don't understand.
Um, it's a good one. There are multiple factors. That's the truth. The first thing that one has to think about is this person that you're expecting to come back home at certain time, how did they travel abroad? At what age did they travel abroad? And what are they doing? If you travel as a student, is one thing. If you travel as a trainee, it's another thing. If you travel as a skilled worker, that's a completely different story. So, when you think about the person that you've not seen for a long time, I guess maybe the first thing would be, okay, how did that person move abroad? For students, it's not that easy for them to come back home. Some students still find their way around and they can come back every 2 years or so. And even within the student category, there are some students who are married and then there are others who are not married. So, whereas there is the economic factor in most cases that determine when and how often you come back home, there is also the motivational factor as well. Like, why should you come back home? What is happening there that's so exciting for you to come back home? So these are kind of the different points that no one sees at the surface. But maybe before we go into these different reasons, maybe my first question to you is, what do you when someone moves abroad? Um, when is the minimum timeline that you feel like that person should touch base again, should come back home?
Well, frankly speaking, I think about 3 years because it shouldn't become too often when you consider the economic implication of that,
Hmm.
financial implication of traveling home. I think
Hmm.
3 years interval should not be too bad.
Yeah, okay, an interval of 3 years. Okay, fair enough. Okay. But in this case, are you considering how the person moved abroad and also if the person would have the means to come back home, Because the person definitely needs something to come back home?
Yeah, that is where the other factors which you just mentioned are now
Hmm.
coming, like your paperwork, the how you traveled abroad. Did you travel abroad as an asylum seeker? Did you travel
Hmm.
abroad as a student? Did you travel abroad as a trainee, as a skilled worker, and
Yep,
all of that? So all the
yep,
paperwork
yep,
that have to go on and other stuff. So we are
yep.
here to hear from you. Please tell us more about it. What are these reasons why it is very difficult to see your faces
Yeah.
regularly as much as
So
possible?
let me touch on them. I will go into four key points which I have listed here. But before this point, I just want to first give a general overview. that the factors range across economic factors, emotional factors, and also so economic, motivational or emotional, and then social factors that has to do with your resident status where you're living. But now, this is how most people think about it. They'd be like, just buy a plane ticket and come back home. That's all it takes. Well, um, logistically speaking, that all it takes, a plane ticket and then you're home, right? But then, in as much as this sentence sounds harmless, until you've lived abroad, then you see that, hey, it goes beyond just the flight ticket. That the flight ticket is not the hardest part of it. And that's the truth that most of us know here. In as much as, yes, it can cost something, but I genuinely believe that the flight ticket is the least of the challenge when it comes to coming back home. So a lot of people stay
Sorry,
away from home.
really? Do you mean this that the flight ticket is one of the least challenges? Well,
Oh,
for some of us, like
100%.
someone like me, I was thinking is a main factor.
No, I would say for the majority of the people living abroad, the flight ticket is the least challenge, my opinion. Why? Because I mean, people here, you have a bit more liquidity. I think you can easily work to get that flight ticket money. You don't have to work so much to get that flight ticket money. Like, in my opinion, regardless of where you stay, especially if you're talking Europe, Africa, they're not too very far walls, so to speak. So, like just Germany to Nigeria, for example, 1,500 euros is more than enough for a round trip. I mean, this is like times two. From my experience, it usually goes around 600 to 800 euros on the high side, except you fly in business class, first class, and so on. But normally, this would be the range, or max 1,000 euros, and then you're good. And I don't think it's if you want to just travel back home, I think you know how to hustle 1,000 euros. So I think flight ticket is the least, in my opinion. But now, um, more than that is the fact that a lot of people stay away because going back home feels like walking into an exam that you didn't prepare for. In fact, you were not even expecting you're going to take that exam. And this is how I see it personally. Um, yeah, the ticket is there. However, going back home is like some kind of performance review. People are checking you out. What have you done? Do you have a house? Do you have what properties do you have? What have you done in general? And I don't think anyone it's a good feeling to be reviewed. Nobody really likes that. I mean, even at work when they do review performance review and stuff, not everyone works likes that. Then imagine in your own life, whether you like it or not, whether you're being reviewed or not, I think there's always innately that feeling of being reviewed. So it's like if your life abroad still looks like you're still surviving, you live in a shared apartment, you don't have a permanent work contract, you don't have a permanent residence, you're still struggling with your visa and stuff, then going back home, it's more like public failure, even though that's no one is going to tell you that directly. But just somehow inside of you, you feel it because of the vibe around the people. Then the other aspect is even though it looks stable, even though when people look at you, it feels like you're stable living abroad. But in reality, in every day, you're very unstable. You know, and it cuts across different areas. I just mentioned maybe your resident status or your job or your studies or who knows what, or you ventured into a business. Frankly speaking, for a lot of people, it takes many years before they can really settle down. So there's always this instability. And I'm going to conclude also by saying that regardless of these instabilities, you should, it will never stop. It's always going to be unstable. So you determine when you're stable. Why? Because things will always keep happening. Nothing will be 100% okay. Because even when something is just done, there is the next thing that's going to come up. I'll give you an example. About like in the last 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks, I've been intensively preparing for one of my key exams as a financial advisor. And I finished it on Thursday. And for just a few minutes, there was a relief. But afterwards, it's like I've forgotten about that, and now I'm thinking about the next thing, rather the next key thing which I need to take care of. So my point is, things will always happen. So sometimes you can't risk traveling because you are just maybe one email away from the next thing which you're not sure what to expect. And it's not like, okay, hey, everything is unpredictable here. No, that's not the point. But to a large extent, multiple factors come in that just makes you want to have a clearer picture before you take that trip, you know? And then if
Okay,
you're
so
married, yeah, go on.
if I get you correctly, I think what you're trying to say here too is that sometimes when you travel, you could lose a lot of progress made already, and if when you're coming back, you would have to start all over again, and which could be a very massive step back.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you're coming back just to visit or you're like relocating back home permanently, right? If you're just coming to visit, it's okay because it's only temporarily. You still come back to your main destination. But if
No,
you're,
we are talking about people who have moved abroad to go stay abroad, to go settling in abroad, and not people who are visiting. Because if you are visiting, definitely there are duration attached to the visa. Most time, 3 months or 6 months. It is hardly up to 1 year, so it's always between 3 months and then 6 months. So we are not that we are referring to people who have gone to stay to live abroad. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess you will still come back anyways to everything that you've left here. And the fact is, when you're away, the bills keep coming and the bills needs to be serviced. So that's also another thing people keep in mind as well. So again, going back to the stability aspect. And then how about the success tax that you pay? It's like this is how I see it. You are living abroad, you're paying rent for yourself here and probably for people back home. You're sending money back home and you're still trying to build a future for yourself, your family. And then so it's like people naturally expect that, yeah, if you can do this, then you can do everything else. You can easily afford the tickets, you can buy gifts, you can show your faces, you can, like on emergency requests, like people can just call you and ask for anything. I know how often, and I think it's common for a lot of us that we just, friends or family members just slide into our DM and ask for anything. It's like you are their emergency hotline, so to speak. Why? Because you are doing this, you're doing that, so you can also do this. Does it make sense for you?
Oh, very well, yes, because even these programs that we run here, this podcast alone could be a signal to somebody that this guy should have money. I did cost myself or people
You
calling to
know?
maybe he's into stuff like this. He speaks to people abroad, and so he should have money. If me relating
Yep.
with you living abroad could not be
Yeah.
seen as somebody who should have money, what more of you? Like they will say, if they go with us, what can the iron do?
If they go to wrestling and the iron dude, that's a good one. But that's the point. It's like, oh, because you're able to do this, you're able to do that, or because you helped this person, then you can also help me and stuff like that. But in
Yeah.
practice, because because the fact that you could do something does not mean that the burden is lighter. No, it gets heavier. And when people add to that, it can only get heavier. So that's also another aspect that people fail to see. So it's now like, okay, yeah, if you can do this for that person, then sure you can do it for me. Then the other aspect is the it's more like the shame. It People kind of live in shame sometimes. Yeah, I hate to say this, but that's the truth to some extent. It's something that people don't talk about, you know. It's not shame of leaving, but it's like shame of returning, you know, like returning and what people will say or not say. So it's kind of easier for you to miss the wedding of a friend than show up for that wedding, and you cannot be as flashy as the other guys who are back home or who came from other countries. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I mean, I get you
Because
100%.
yeah, it's like it's funny sometimes when we go back home, we live in abroad, we find the lifestyle back home quite expensive. And you have other people that are just balling, doing stuff, but you cannot really beat them. You can't compete with them. I'm not sure why. Even if we would check, say, the monthly net take home that you probably would take, say, overall, more money back home at the end of the month compared to the other guys back home. but somehow they can afford the more expensive lifestyle and you can't afford
Okay,
it.
so Michael, now if I get you right, I think one of the main factors here also is expectation that is being hung on the shoulders of those who live abroad. If you are coming, there's a way you should appear. That there are certain level of respect you should command. Certain level of you should be able to respond to certain requests without
You know?
struggle very
Yeah.
easily. And then those pictures that we paint in our minds about this brother who is coming from abroad, yeah, and stuff like that. So that weight of expectation, if I get you right.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that's the point. And now, because you've been away for a long time, you're not sure how people navigate the system back home and how they survive and how they do stuff. So you're in your home country, but you still feel alien. You still feel it still feels like you're a stranger there. So it's kind of easier just not to go, and then you rather stay away. I'm not saying that's the solution, but this is a default reaction that most people would have. So there's that um, quietness and just I would rather not go, you know. Um, but I guess the biggest part for me is that home changes too, because you've been away for a long time. You've changed, and then home has also changed. You know, you imagine returning to the same place you left, but your friends they've moved on. Your siblings are now adults. Your relatives are all grown. Your parents look a lot older than you remember. And then you realize that you didn't just migrate countries or moved abroad, but you completely missed a whole timeline or several timelines because all these people in your life, they've moved from one timeline to the next. The younger ones are all grown, they're adults. Your friends have moved on. Your parents are much older. Sadly, in some cases, some pass away. And these are all different timelines that you've missed. So, and now there can be this guilt which you feel inside of you and you don't say it loud, but then it's there. You've missed funerals of different people because every now and then parents tell you, oh, this one passed away, this one passed away. And it feels like before I go back home, am I going to see anybody again? You know, you've missed birthdays of your parents, of your younger ones, of your siblings, of some close friends. Um, you keep postponing your trip, promising you're going to come back next year. But when it's next year exactly, time keeps flying. It's not waiting for you, you know? Um, so I think these are like some of the key things which happen naturally and people don't talk about them very openly, but then you kind of react to them by default. And that natural reaction is just to kind of stay away. But the essence of this conversation is that no, you shouldn't stay away. You should recognize these things, know that they happen, but then think about the most important thing. And for me, the most important thing is this last aspect, the timeline that is flying, that is passing. Every time I think about it, I have this sense of urgency to go back home and not miss these timelines. And truth is, you need to like build a solid wall around yourself and not care about things which are not relevant. And families back home, they don't see this though, because the one abroad is always expected to be the strong one. But why and how? It doesn't get easier because there's more and more people. So I guess for me, I would say that let the conversation change because we need to help each other here. Whereas the people abroad need to get stronger and focus on the most important things, the people back home also need to make the landing for them a bit softer. And that means probably not asking, when are you going to come back home? But maybe trying to change the question to what would you need to come back home? What would be easier for you? How are you feeling over there? We would like to see you. How can we help you? Like I think if you change the way it's been approached and not make it feel like, hey, you have to come back home. When are we going to see you? But be a bit more empathic, a bit more sympathetic, so to speak, then it makes the other person truly stronger because they are actually strong. That's the fact. Yes, the one abroad feels like the stronger person or is the stronger person, no doubt. but then they're still humans. So a little push in the right way would encourage them. So I think this for me is kind of how I would sum up why migrants go years without returning home for these different factors. And then more importantly is how we can begin to change the narrative and help the people abroad come back home. Because we all need each other at the end of the day. We're missing
Okay.
timelines here. They are also missing timelines
Yeah.
here, you know? Yeah, go on,
Yeah.
please.
No, I think somehow closely related to what you're saying is even those of us who are in Nigeria, we're in different states.
Right.
Maybe I'm living in Lagos, and there are also expectations of somebody who has traveled to Lagos from those who are living in Utupo or in the other towns in the other states.
Mhm.
And and there are also people who are living within Nigeria or other parts of Africa who have not traveled home for years. For instance, me now, I don't think I've not traveled to Utupo for about 4 years thereabout.
Yeah,
But I'm in Nigeria. I've not traveled to Benin State school, but I'm in Nigeria. And sometimes what you're saying, the expectations, or there are friends who intentionally come to just make life miserable for their friends or other people with their car and all they've been able to achieve for themselves, And these things, I beg, I don't want wahala. Or you going home, okay, if I go home now, maybe the house is not properly painted, it will need some facelifting, renovation. You're not able to do that. You see that this car, the car he's using, it's not looking nice, and you have come from abroad and you can't do anything about this. Which guy abroad this guy go like this? And
you understand, and you feel like
your mother
guilty.
is not your mother is also strong, or you see her condition and you can't do much about it because of the realities. Because I think I also understand that the cost of living in your destination country or your host country could also be another factor. So, for instance, now if I'm working in Nigeria and I'm earning in dollar, maybe I'm earning 1,000 or $1,400, and you are living abroad and you're earning about same amount, definitely I'm going to be living better than you here. Although
Right?
the value is stronger there, but your cost for rent can pay my rent maybe like several times here. Or
For sure.
maybe what you pay in a month can pay my rent for a year from that same salary. So the
Mhm.
reality is, I don't know exactly the same. Yes, there you have a stable economy there, a more stable kind of arrangement there. But the reality is the cost of living again. By the time you put it together, it's not really easy. So these are the realities in between the two different worlds. And then because people don't talk about this thing, it is not very easy for people who are living back in Africa or other parts of the world to manage the realities of what to expect from their brothers and sisters who are living abroad. Then I think also another factor, like you rightly mentioned, is maybe by the time you left Nigeria, you left as a student. Now you've been able to complete your paperwork, living as with your resident permit and work permit and all that, and you're not married with a family of your own. So the cost of traveling back now is quite expensive because you have to come with your wife, the kids, and all that. So coming home becomes more difficult and all
That's
that.
true.
So
That's true.
I think, and also some have also cited political and instability by extension security and all that. So when you hear a story of your friend who traveled home, gets kidnapped and all the wahala and all this, even some of us who are here in Nigeria, we are afraid of traveling home because we don't want to get caught in between this whole issue and begin to make the headlines, see ourselves in the news and all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ridiculous demands from these criminals and all. So I think
Yeah.
this could also be a factor. I don't know what you think.
100%. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all those. I kind of touched on some point which I felt like, okay, top on the list, but 100% everything that you mentioned, they are correct. Why? Because these are things that affect people in general. So that's why I mentioned that the reasons cut across both economic reasons, social, but also security reasons, as you already mentioned right now. So I guess the key point here is that um, each person should identify what are those reasons for them, and then try to find ways to resolve them. Because at the end of the day, what is life if you're not with the people that you love the most? What is life if you're not with your families? What is life if you're not with your close friends to celebrate some important milestones or timelines with them, or just be with them in general? Because life can actually be really lonely on this side as well, you know, because you don't have as many friends and families as you would have back home. And I think as humans, you always feel this touch and need to be with the people that you love, the people that are supposed to be in your life. So 100%. These factors or challenges exist, but then the key thing is how can we make the landing soft? The people living abroad, they have the responsibility to identify those factors which make them not to come back home very often and resolve them. And then the people back home as well have to also make the coming back home softer for the people. I
Well,
guess
again,
yeah, go on.
sorry please for cutting in. Sorry for interjecting. Now, but again, I don't really pity you guys. I don't envy you guys also because you are like in a dilemma. No, but
Hmm.
this is what I mean. You've traveled abroad. First of all, you were like a stranger. I don't know what time. It becomes more like your home. And some of
Yeah.
you establish yourself. You have your farm that are running. Some are into animal husbandry. Some are into crops. And you can't travel and leave this investment or this enterprise. You have to be around them.
Yeah.
So sometimes for some people, it's not even money, it's not the paperwork, it's not the documentation, it's not all of those immigration, whatever, but it's just their business. Like we have in Nigeria, there are people who are unable to travel home because of their business, all right? They have to see on ground and see how things work. And this thing happens year in, year out. So you have the money, everything is working, but you don't have the time. Could that be a
That's
factor too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's also another thing. If you're someone who works, if you're employed, then it's a bit easier because yeah, you can take vacation, you can take leave. Most people in Germany and I think most other Western countries, they can take vacation up to 26, 30 days or more in a year. So what most people do is they reserve this vacation towards maybe Christmas period
That's
or
true.
whenever you want to travel back home, right? So you reserve the vacation for that time. But if you are a business owner, then it becomes a bit tricky. Yes, you are the owner of the business. You can do whatever you want, but then it also depends on what stage your business is before you can then travel, before you can afford to travel, so to speak, because you might need someone to be watching your business. So this is also another key factor. Not to mention, in some cases, yeah, maybe you plan to travel, but because of the nature of your job, there is some kind of emergency call that you have to show up and you just have to be there. So that's also another theme as well. But I guess in general, it's like if you can't travel at one point, you can travel at another point. So what we're talking about is how to, yeah, come out of this silent distance that people feel a bit more comfortable going back home after living abroad for X number of years.
Yes, the silent distance because sometimes when you live for like I mentioned to you some time ago, I have a friend. He's so close to my heart. Sincerely speaking, he's so close to my heart. You know my friend, possibly the one who I'm talking about. We were like friends. Some mistaken me for him. Some call me his name. Some other call him my name. It's that confusing. So and when he leaves, I was always checking on him, and it became like I was disturbing his peace. So this is not about traveling home again. Keeping your networks back at home is also very, very important. It's not every time we check on you, check up on you that we are trying to soften the ground for to ask for one help or the other. So we shouldn't be treated like suspects for every single call we put across.
I know, it's true. I guess over time, you know the kind of people that when they call you, you know that you can confidently pick up their calls or open their message when you see it, and those that you would rather just let it, let sleeping dog lie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyways, I hope this was valuable to everyone watching right now and also later. Um, we come up here once every week on Saturday at 7 a.m. West African time or 7:30, depending on how we slept the previous night, to talk about important one topic when it comes to studying, working, and living abroad. Because for us, we feel like there are a lot of topics that people don't touch, and we genuinely want to talk about those topics. So if this resonated with you, yeah, feel free to leave your comment, what you think, but also share it with other people as well so that they get to see it. This whole podcast is sponsored by Settling, the media platform which we're building to connect and inform people about studying, working abroad, and moving abroad in general. Because we feel like there need to be a space where people can intentionally structure their moving abroad process, be it to study, be it to work, and also to ensure that this whole process of migration is sustainable. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here, right? People moving and now keeping this silent distance. No, we want the two worlds to be nicely connected, so that both sides can be helping each other because we do need each other, and that's what we were talking about today. So please.
Yeah. All right. So that's a very good one from you, Michael. Now, well, what we're saying is yes, you can travel, but this other aspect that we're saying you don't necessarily need to travel, but just keep your connection, to keep in touch with your base. All right.
Yeah.
We know these realities all exist, but as much as possible, trying to keep in touch with your base. And then I think you have to be strong. For those of you who are living abroad, you have to find the best way possible to manage these expectations and all that. And sometimes, where possible, you have to just I mean, forget about all these things that people will say. If you're a human being, after all. So if it is easy, anybody could have traveled abroad too. So to have traveled abroad, you didn't say you're going to bring them the whole world. So you travel home and then see your family, see your mother, see your father. Sometime when you remain for too long abroad, and as you are coming back, they say your mother have died in your absence, your father have died. It creates some kind of very terrible vacuum in your heart, or you begin to, oh, I should have seen him at least before, and no stuff like that. So it's only when you hear your parents are sick or they're not doing too well, you just have to fight the tide. I come see them. We can't talk about this enough right now for want of time. So please,
Yeah.
as much as possible, keep in touch. Buy your age parents an Android phone. You can make WhatsApp call with them. They see you in the video, you see them, and you laugh together with your children. Things like this can also go a long way to keep in contact, in touch with a very loved ones who are still back at home. And we know you have your family there. You know you've been able to build a system around yourself. You have friends and all that, but you still have people back at home who still care so much about you and who mean so much to you too. Yeah. Michael, so what's your final thought on all of this?
So the final thought is that this we should close this distance. We should close this gap for sure. And people should not run away from the reasons that make them not to return home for years. You should, yeah, it's like your problem is as big as how you can dissect it into small units. And the fact is, by the time you bring it down to small units, you discover that, oh, this problem is not that big. It's not as huge as I used to think about it, because then you can attack each of them directly. It's like, okay, hey, people are expecting me to do this and that. Who are these people? Do I even care about them? Or it's your parent. You tell your parent, okay, hey, okay, I would like to do this. I haven't done it. Can we move on? So that you can now approach these things in a bit more positive way. And at the end of the day, you discover that these are reasons that are keeping you from getting to be with your loved ones and not missing on these different timelines. They're not that huge anymore. And then you resolve that problem, and then this distance is now broken. So I guess my key point is this: it looks huge from the outside if you don't approach it and try to break it down into parts. But when you do that, you see that at the end of the day, you can actually go back home as often as you would like to and not feel any unnecessary pressure, and you still get the benefit of visiting. Of course, think about yourself, your position, your location, securities, and all this stuff. And that's the point of dissecting the problem, so you can now begin to solve them. So don't run away, don't keep the distance, approach, look for best way to resolve it. And of course, the people also on the other side, make the landing for all the guys abroad soft for them. So that's it for today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Michael, and for our viewers there. Let's continue to keep the conversation going in the comment section. For you, maybe we have not mentioned your reason for not traveling home for years now. You're living abroad, and perhaps we've not touched your own reason. What do you think is the reason? Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section, and don't forget to sign up on Settling. You will enjoy it. We can keep all the conversation going and all that. Next question can be asked on the Settling platform, which has been put in place for you and for migrants, for those who are already abroad and those who plan to travel abroad. Is that platform? You've got all the resources there to make life worth living for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys, and see you around next Saturday or the next video, whatever, whichever one comes first. Cheers.
Yeah, yeah.